Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Three Losers in a Church podcast. I'm Chris. This episode is called New Life. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Just the idea of new life, the idea of Christ's death giving us new life. I have to make a PSA. I realized from my friend Lauren that we haven't been referring to this as a Godcast. And I feel like that's a disservice. So I have to bring that up. So,
Godcast.
Yeah. She's not even watching it, and she pointed that out. So just, from here on out, that's what we got to do. Anyway, so yeah, this is just something, I don't know, it's been on my heart a lot lately. I plan on speaking about it in other venues, but I wanted to start off by reading a couple short scripture passages about the idea of new life. The first one is from John 5:24. I'm just going to read it on a screen because I can't memorize scripture very well. It says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life. He does not come into judgment, but has passed from death to life." The second one is from Ephesians chapter 2, verse 4 to 5. "But God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved." So it might be on my mind because I'm taking a theology class and I'm just being bombarded with scriptural information. But my professor was talking about how we talk a lot about salvation, well, obviously, because that's important. But, this passage in particular is talking about death and life, not justification versus guilt or some other thing. I don't know. And just the idea of new life to me is such a drastic and extreme idea that I was kind of interested in getting some perspective on it from you two, because it's, I don't know, there's a lot of implications, I think.
So you say you're learning about this in your theology classes right now?
I mean, sort of. It's a really generalized basic overview of theology, so they're just touching on all these random points right now. So we're not really learning about this specifically.
Can we define what new life is?
We could. I guess that's kind of the whole point, right, of this.
I mean, so the first thing that comes to mind for me is this idea of transformation, right? New life, right? There's a process of transformation happening. And I think a lot of the times, and personally, I go when was that moment of said new life, right? And I don't know if this is where you're going with this, and I don't know if we agree on this, but I think it's a process. Right? Sure, maybe there's a day, when baptism or something like that, when this process is started per se, but it's a process opposed to a transformation, an immediate transformation.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel it's an immediate transformation, and they're okay, well, I have a new body, I'm a totally different person, and very rarely does life work like that.
Right.
And I don't know if we agree on this, or if this is kind of where you were going, or if
it's funny because I do agree with you, but in my head for some reason I picture it as a clean break.
Right. It's easier that way.
It is, yeah. But it's almost like that clean break indicates the point where transformation begins. Because there definitely is. It's not. I feel like for 99% of people, it's not like you wake up and you're everything's new and different.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think
maybe Paul.
Right, and I think there's examples.
Yeah.
Right. There's examples in life when people have those moments of extreme transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you said, I don't think 99% of people.
Right.
Maybe,
even though if you want it to be that way, or acknowledge that it could be, but.
And it's hard to notice those changes in your life, right? My favorite is the haircut, right? You don't notice how long your hair gets until you get a haircut, and you're oh my gosh.
Right. I just got one yesterday, and it's man, there's a lot of hair on
right
the floor right now, but I didn't know that much was on my head.
And so a lot or you haven't seen someone in a really long time, and you go whoa, you're very different, right? What your day to day, same with weight loss and stuff like that.
Right.
The day to day, you don't notice it because you're there.
Yeah.
But someone an outside source, right? Wow, it's been a week, and you're so different.
Right.
So a haircut's kind of a bad analogy of that because it's kind of immediate, but. Actually, no, it's not. But the hair growing process,
right?
But yeah, I don't know. That's really kind of an odd way to put it, but I think it's kind of works in a sense.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, like when we talk about new life, then that indicates there's an old life, right? So then
Mhm.
old life is the life before you say you believed, and like you're letting God change your life, or you're letting your faith like kind of like dictate like where your life goes, and then new life is after you believe, and then you commit your life to Christ. Is that what we're saying is the difference between old and new? The old lifestyle versus the new lifestyle?
Right.
Just to clarify. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
throwing that out there.
To
just
me,
to
yeah, like new
clarify.
life is like once you've accepted Christ.
I realized I began to explain that and then chose a totally different topic. But that's okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
I like your analogy of the workout though,
Mhm.
because you might commit your life to something. Like I think working out is such a good example for so many things. Like you commit your life to something. You're like, okay, I'm gonna try to do it, and then over time you will see progress. Over time you will see like a change, right? Though you yourself see it's so gradual and just like you witness it all. Where someone might say, oh, you were like A before, and then now you're like B. So like that can like I do think for some like you can drastically see that old and new life difference.
Mhm.
But I do agree with you. I do think it's not like for some people, maybe, but the reality is that once you take your faith seriously, once you start committing to it, and once you start understanding and learning about it, then do you see the gradual change. Then do you start changing certain habits. Then do you start understanding and seeing the world in a different perspective.
Mhm.
But if you've been blessed to have the immediate change, good for you. That's a miracle in itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I don't think people's entire life. Well, I mean, there's examples, but like I very rarely is someone's entire life completely changed. Like maybe a small aspect. I think a lot of like sometimes we wake up and we're like, wow, like I've never thought about that, and like, yeah, I gotta stop doing that. Right. And like we often fail, but that's another whole tangent.
Yeah.
But like there's examples of complete life transformation. But like
Mhm.
even that, like how much of that is perceived as complete life transformation and like
Right.
externalized opposed to like true internal life transformation.
I mean, God works in mysterious
Right.
ways. Yes, anything can happen for any individual.
Yeah.
But I think it's also the willingness to let that new life take over, right? I think if it's okay to jump the gun a little bit,
Yeah.
you have a really good question. I think I really like to touch on is it tempting for you to go back to your old life?
Mhm.
And I think that's something that we always hear about, right? People are just like, I've been so strong in my faith. It's been so good. And like, God is amazing, blah, blah, blah. But then they're like, oh, like, I fell back to the same things over and over again. I think retreat's a very good example of
Yeah,
this,
for sure.
right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily like old life, like you're like, oh, like I'm back to like smoking and like doing all these horrible things, right? But there's the case where like people are like, oh, I go to a retreat, I have that spiritual high. I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna commit to reading the Bible every day, praying every time I go before I go to sleep, doing all these things. But then when they go back to the real world after the retreat, then they relapse and fall back into the old habits, which is not reading your Bible, not praying, all that stuff. And then they start beating themselves up over it. And I don't think it's necessarily a temptation, right? It's just it happens.
Yeah. It's like familiar and comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
For me, a lot of the times that's what it is more than temptation, I think. Like there's definitely temptation, but also like I'm just so familiar with how I lived my life for so long that like I get stressed out. My natural thing is to like go back to a certain way of doing things, I guess, because that's what's always been there before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like there's this interesting point that kind of throws out my first point, but they're good in contrast.
I think you're good at arguing with yourself.
It's like it's my talent. I do
You
it
can
every
honestly just have a
single
podcast
day.
where you just talk to yourself.
Um,
Just get
Three
angry.
Tylers in a church.
Three Tylers in a church.
I've always wanted to clone myself. Is that a little egocentric? Anyway,
Ever so
it's
slightly.
okay. But so I think before I said it's like a transformational process, but I think it's easy because we are given new life to like not want to squander it, right? We're going to try not to tarnish it in any way, right? And some of that is true. Like we are given new life through Christ, right? And this is kind of where they work, where like this new life is like a transition, right? It's transforming. You're not a completely changed person in a day, but like through that transaction, for say, with Christ. I don't really like that idea, but it's going to work for this.
Technically, it is.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's
In a
not.
way.
It's kind of a negative word, and
Yeah,
I don't
no,
use.
but
But through that, we are given new life. right?
Right.
And like begun that process kind of, but like it's still there. It is still new, right?
Mhm.
And so like with that new life, a lot of the time we are given it and we don't want to like squander it or, you know, as I said, like tarnish it in ways, right? Through temptations and other ways. So I think like realizing that we do have this new life and this started this new process of transformation is so important and so like relieving, right?
It's
Yeah.
also a reminder that you have, regardless of like what happens to you, like you are still forgiven, you are still loved, but you still like are trying to embrace like your new self. You are still trying to embrace like, oh, this is what my faith is gonna do for me, right? I think that's why I'm so like when it comes to people who beat themselves up about their faith, I'm just like, it's you will have wonderful weeks and streaks of just like having such a spiritually filled time,
Mhm.
but then there are dark days where the season's dark. And then this is where people. I was talking to someone about this today. Actually, they're just like, oh, the concept of just like, oh, if you're not moving forward, you're not growing your faith at all. But sometimes in your life, you just have to stay still and just.
Mhm.
That's just the season of life you're
Be
in.
still.
Yeah,
and
be
know that I'm
still.
God.
Like,
Yeah.
the same exact verse was referenced today as well.
Really?
It's just like, you know, like we say God drifts away, but God's never going to drift away. We're just in a season where we don't see or like perceive or understand that God is there.
Mhm.
And it's just to be simply reminded that to go back to him, right? And I think that's like with the whole idea of like, oh, like I can't if I tarnish it, I'm going to fall back and then I'm going to drift
Right.
away from God. When in reality, it's like, no, that's not true at all.
And that's something I hadn't even thought about when I was coming up with this. Is like, you know, like you get a brand new car and you get one scratch on it or something, you know, and it's like, oh my God, like,
Right.
I hate this. But you have like a 97 Buick or something, just random example.
Spitballing now.
Yeah. And you walk out and for some reason there's scratches all over your hood and you can't figure out where they came from and it doesn't bother you as much.
Right.
I don't know where those scratches came from.
Sure.
There were some women sitting on my car the other night in the parking lot, so that might have been
Where?
At
outside of
FBC.
FBC after the ice cream social. I walked out to my car and there were just 3 drunk girls sitting on my hood. It's like,
Welcome
yeah.
back to college year.
Right?
Mhm.
Happy college year to all those who are in college.
Yeah.
You have ruined this silent, beautiful town, and now I have to try going to sleep at 1 a.m. when people are partying next door. I'm not salty.
I had no problem. I slept like
You're
a
on the
baby.
other side. I realize me, John, and Adam are all on the same side of the house,
Oof.
right next to said party goers.
But I think a point.
Like a new car, a scratch.
Right. So yeah, that's a really good example that I didn't even think of.
Mm.
Yeah. And like I think that's a good thing in a lot of ways of like we get that scratch in the car and we're like, "Ugh,"
Mhm.
because we want it to be good.
Mhm.
And like there's levels of like I want this to be good so other people think I'm successful or like I want this to be good so I feel valued, right?
Mhm.
And like that's true in life too. A lot of the times we're like I want to put in this effort so, you know, this person will think more highly of me or
Right.
I will think more highly of myself,
Ooh,
right?
Twisting what is good to
Right.
become something.
Right. Yeah.
Also talked about that today. Ooh, a
Yeah.
lot of relevant topics.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so like there's another whole level to that.
Right.
Freaking watch.
Have either of you ever like intentionally dressed nicer at church just because you knew somebody was going to be there and you wanted them to like see you dress nicer?
Not because of an individual,
No,
but because of a group of people.
really.
When I started I don't know if you guys knew me or like hung out with me at church, but when I was in undergrad, I dressed like a bum. Like I didn't care. I just put on something and I rolled out. So I'd show up to church in like shorts and like flip flops and slides. Granted, I did that during the summer, and I
I was gonna say I saw you in that like a week ago.
And last week. But that's okay. No
hey,
comment.
last week I wore something.
No comment.
Oh my! Well, so for me, once the college year starts, I put on something slightly nicer. Like I wear like nicer shoes, chuckas, chukas. Comment which one you think it's pronounced. I'm pretty sure it's chuckas, right?
I don't know what we're referring to.
My brown shoes.
Oh.
CHUKKA.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm the wrong person. to
I
ask.
I've never heard
There's a
them
name
called
for it.
that. I never knew that.
Yeah, chukas or
Wow.
chuckas. I don't know. Anywho, but like to answer your question, when those I am ministering to, I want to look slightly more presentable. Granted, I should shave my face, which I will do. But it's just like, oh, I want to like look better because I want to be presentable because I am a leader of the church. That's why during the summer I was just like, fun employment.
Yeah.
I don't care. But then, yeah, Are we talking about the fact that it's like twisting it for? Sorry, just
Well, that's where it came from. Then I was just kind of curious, to be honest. That's what sparked the thought.
I'm never concerned with that word appearance of myself.
Never.
Never.
you always dress nice on Sunday.
I'm just
period.
such a humble character.
Oh
The most
my
humble.
goodness.
Like to a fault almost, Chris.
the worst.
Yeah, I try to dress nice to impress people.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm sure some of that is like, oh, I want people to take me serious because I feel like people don't take me seriously sometimes, which is the story of my life. But besides the point. So in short, almost 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. I was just curious.
No,
That
well,
doesn't really, I guess, relate.
I
to
mean,
anything.
if we're talking about like twisting or doing good things for like that ulterior motive, right? When you do something nice, whether to in front of someone
Right.
in order to let them like, oh, this person's nice.
Wow.
Oh,
You got a good heart.
Wow. What a big heart for Jesus.
Yeah.
Ulterior motives with a very simple motive, but yeah.
Mhm.
What were we talking about again? How did we get on that?
I don't
Twisting
know.
something
That
that's
car,
good.
yeah, that
Yeah.
car
Yeah.
analogy.
It's kind of like abusing the new life
Yeah.
you've been
Right.
given.
And so I think it is interesting because you do buy this new car. You are given this new life, right? You get the haircut. You do all this, right?
Mm.
I'm really in these analogies right now. But like that part, the old life is still a part of us in a lot of ways.
Mm.
But like it is separate. And I think that is a key realization to make is we are no longer held to it.
Yeah.
That car that we owned, yeah, it's like a memory, and like maybe we almost died in it once, and like that's like we're haunted
Too
by
real.
that still.
I feel like these shots are being fired right now. Oh my goodness.
Not intentionally, but so like that's still a part of us. Yet we have this new car, and yeah, sure, maybe we're concerned about the scratches, and maybe we buff it so it looks nice for outward appearances, right? And sure, that's not great, but yet it is so different and so new
Right.
Your
and
history,
completely different.
your history still is a part of you, but just because it is a part of you does not mean it should weigh you down.
Yeah. I think that's what I've been thinking a lot about is because, like, like your sins have been wiped clean, washed away. Like, God doesn't take any of that into consideration in your salvation, but it's still like, you're made who you are from like your past.
It's where you were where you came from. And now
Yeah,
here you
because
are.
God uses that past to. I mean, He can use anything for His good,
Yeah.
even your faults and sins and weaknesses and whatever else.
Because I mean, we had our faith story episodes, right? That in itself, it I think is a testimony to that, right? What we were and now what we are, right? Can you touch the mouth? Thank you.
There's way too many Apple logos going on over there.
I was like,
This
oh.
episode's sponsored by Apple.
Oh, if we got sponsored by Apple, that'd be baller.
Yeah, we definitely would not have any of this equipment if we got sponsored by them.
The like 10-year-old Mac,
12, get my facts straight, 2007.
still 10
Old.
years newer than my car.
5 years newer than my car.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that distinguishing that the past is in the past,
Mm.
that a new life has begun,
Yeah.
but also learning from that, right? Like, hey, maybe next time you buy a car, Chris, like,
In fairness,
it's not a Buick.
In
Like, I
fairness,
don't know.
you sold me the car.
Wasn't me. This is an analogy, okay?
I feel like there's a lot of underlying tension that's getting pulled out.
We're gonna.
This is now the fight podcast.
Right.
Fight.
I've been trying to start an FBC fight club, and nobody's into it. So
Where we even put in the fellowship hall?
I don't care.
We have the 4 pillars. We just have
Anyways,
the cage around it.
So let's say like you learned something from your prior vehicle or your
Yeah.
prior life, right?
Mm.
Like that is still a part of you, still used in making decisions, still like crucial.
Yeah.
Yet it does not affect your current vehicle or
Right.
your current life, right?
Mm.
Doesn't have a direct line. I'm sure there's like things that weigh you down, shame, guilt,
Mhm.
bad decisions, right? I'll wake up in the middle of the night and go like, like this is the dumbest choice I made 7 years ago
Right.
during a conversation with one person that I'm sure they don't remember.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
like that, all of that is for naught,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is your perception that it is the perception and just what you're essentially just lying to yourself at that rate, right?
Mhm.
I'm looking at that because I mean, you talk about like old things that have been taken, like that have been like in your past and like your new life. But like another question I think that like ties into that Chris wrote was, what kind of things has God given you / taken away in your new life, right? I mean, alcohol.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't drink anymore.
Yeah.
I think I clarified this in another episode, but just to be sure, I was never like an alcoholic. I don't have a drinking problem, but it was just a vice. But yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I was at a like party and just like, oh, some water, you know.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I used to be like that too before college. Go figure.
Couldn't tell what people were drinking because everyone was using a red Solo cup.
I know that was classy. I like with the red Solo cup look. Reminds me of undergrad.
Gotta love those undergrad days.
Yeah, dude. You know how it is.
You're in college.
Yeah, buddy.
Is this the first podcast we're recording that you're in college?
No. Oh, we skipped last week.
We did skip last week.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations, everyone.
Wowie.
Yeah, congratulations to Tyler who started his
Classes.
first couple classes into his first year.
Yeah, me too, actually. I started my master's.
Your master's.
Congratulations, yeah.
This is new life right here.
New life indeed. Yes.
I will soon be a bachelor. You will soon be a master.
Wow.
And I will still be confused.
Good. But yeah, I like, so personally, right? Like, I mean, vices have changed a lot, like escapes.
Yeah.
I don't know, like probably the largest one is like anger a lot of ways,
Mhm.
and like a lot of self-hatred too.
Yeah.
Which is still like such a part of my life, and it's still like comes up all the time, and I'm far from escaping it.
Yeah.
But it is just looking. I mean, I gave up teaching a while ago, and my big thing was like, wow, like God really uses small things, right, to do crazy things in your life, right? I think like the line I said was like, sometimes God doesn't need to move a mountain, just a blade of grass, right? And so like,
You said that before?
I did.
Oh wow, I
That's
like that a
insightful, yeah.
lot.
Thank you.
Sorry. Ooh.
Wow.
I don't know if you were there for that teaching. That was
if it was a summer teaching, then I would have known. Yeah.
Oh, I think it was. It was not my personal favorite, but
You were like,
I was probably there and I forgot.
it's okay. Actually, I don't think you were there for that one.
Oh, okay, good.
It was. I kind of rushed it. But anyways, we could go into my bad teaching skills many a times, but
kid just self-doubt and self-deprecation. On
on that note, but it was. No, it was. It was good for what it was. It was. I was delivering this point of God works in ways we don't always see.
Right.
And I think that's a well-known fact. But I think a personal example is just like the amount of times I would approach situations in anger, in angst, even too, and just like frustration with people or situations, and like how that's still a part of me in a lot of ways. I still walk in sometimes. I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, right? Like frustration is a healthy thing, right? You care about things, therefore you get frustrated.
Yeah.
But like the amount of times that I get frustrated or like to a level of such extreme is decreased so much.
Yeah.
And like some of that I think comes with age, but also like
Yeah. I mean,
not the same caliber.
Since I started at Hub, the difference, I mean, and then I'm sure you can say even more because you've been doing Hub longer than me, but just seeing like, I remember you and Adam used to fight like crazy. And now it's like, wow, you're living together and happy most of the time.
Yeah, which is a whole weird situation. I don't get how that works, but yeah, and like some of that is like to really just begun to appreciate people a lot more. I think I was more cynical than I am now, which is crazy that happens. But yeah, like seeing people for like what they are and what they're good at, opposed to like what they're not good at.
Yeah.
Because with age also comes the ability to be aware of different things, right? My bus driver Brian and I, we talk a lot because it's just two of us on a bus when we come back from Springfield. So it's like I could either just sit there and be on my phone, or I could talk to this wise old 60-year-old man who's lived a long life. But what he told me was that in his life, like what he appreciates and that he believes that I have a head start on because of my faith, and I think you guys can probably relate to this, is that being aware of other people and the consequences of your actions or like what you're thinking. I think about what you're saying. It's like, oh yeah, like appreciation for other people, right? And I think with like new life as well, that's also something. It's like, oh, with your new life, you realize that there's so much more than just like that minuscule thing that you're so focused on. Like it allows you to zoom out and realize, God did something in that small moment in order to allow something bigger to happen, right?
Yeah.
I think about the summer, right? A good example is back in what was it? The first time I took my driver's test, I failed.
Same.
I cried and I was like miserable. I was sad. I didn't get a job. I had a job rejection and I was like, oh, like I'm a failure. I'm miserable. Fast forward a month later, I failed my second time.
Same.
But the thing was like I remember Lisette was telling me, that's the person who sponsored my vehicle. She was like, from like a month and a half ago, you were so focused on all the wrong things, and yet over the course of a month and a half, you realize your identity is more than just your successes and failures in like a road test and everything. There's so much more to you than just that. And I think that awareness and a perception of like how God has changed you and how God is affecting your life really allows you to be free from like your own like vices, your own self-deprecation and everything.
Yeah.
And being reminding you that there's something greater at hand beyond just like what you think that is big or like crazy.
Yeah, some of the things that I used to hold to such high importance, I look back and I'm like, oh man, why did I even care about that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
We're all like children to some degree. Like kids cry about the dumbest things, and you're just like, did you really just cry about that? And they're like, and they're just crying. And you're just like, and then you realize that's their whole world to them.
Right.
Right.
And then similarly for us, even as adults, like what we cared about like 4 or 5 years ago, we don't care anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny because I make fun of kids for doing that, and then I think of like how angry I get at work about oranges.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, dude, like I need to calm down. Like,
Dude, vacuum hoses recently, man.
oh yeah, like
Freaking end of the vacuum hose keeps coming off. I'm gonna lose it with this vacuum.
Why don't you just duct tape it?
Well, it's supposed to work, but
the vacuum needs a new
You're-
life.
I don't want to talk about it. I'm already angry about this freaking vacuum hose. But yeah, like the dumbest things. And I think it's easy to be like, oh, so childish. Yes. But like, I don't know.
I got some vibes from
I don't know what that was. I'm sorry. But like, I think it's easy to be like, oh, they just don't see the whole picture. But yet, like, those people who do see the whole picture, yet what are they focusing on, right? Something just as small, just as minute.
Right.
Right. And so, like, I think it's easy to be negative about that and be like, oh, you're just like a little kid who's crying over a lollipop. Right. But like, as Sam said, like, that's just as much of their world as anything that matters to us.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know how this ties into new life, but I'm sure it does somehow, right?
I think so.
I mean, you start caring
all
about,
relevant.
yeah, you start
Right.
caring more than just, you realize, oh, like, there's a bigger narrative. Like, this one thing that's causing me to stumble and that's making me suffer. It's like, down the road, you're going to look back and laugh at it. I think that's something that also Lisette said. She was like, you're going to look back on these tests that you failed and you're going to laugh because your life's going to be okay because God has a plan for you, right?
Right.
He's going to take you in better directions. And like, I mean, you guys witnessed it. Literally got a job. Then I got my license. Though I'm still convinced it's because Thomas Franklin moved out. This house is tied to a 4 licensed, 4 employed individual only household. But
It's true.
I look back and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I like cried a bit over that. But then you realize like I was so fixated on like myself. I was fixated on my own success and like being able to tell people, look at me, I did it. But in reality, it's just like, like God was just like, I'm humbling you. Like I want you to realize and focus. Like there's so much more to life than just that one individual thing. Like
Yeah.
I want you to see like the plans that I have for you. I did a bit of reflection today, and like I love my job as much as like I complain about it because like everyone complains about work all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's in ministry, whether it's in a supermarket, anywhere, like you always will have something to complain about. But I realize like I see God so much through my work, working with kids. I see God so much when I work with college ministries, when I interact with you guys. It's like, wow, like to see that his love goes beyond so much and like it can carry you in so many ways, then it's just a blessing to see like this is where I end up or I am right now in this stage of life. So like old life, new life. Let's keep going. Let's see what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, part of that new life is like exactly that, like the freedom to keep gaining that perspective more and more, Like, and I guess I've been thinking about how grateful I am for that lately. instead of just being like a miserable wreck like I was in high school.
Mm.
And then, all the stuff I talked about, my faith story, blah, blah, blah. Like just that I have the freedom to not be that anymore is just so amazing.
And trusting something greater too, right? I mean, like, look
Right.
at your situation, right? Like, you went from living in that house and like working like a job like that to seminary. Your housing is a different situation, a wonderful situation,
Right.
and like blessings on blessings, right?
Yeah. And I know that even if all that was taken away, like I still can rely on God, I hope it doesn't, but
Oh yeah, no.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, God, please. Yeah.
And like to kind of wrap us up, I think this idea of new life, right? As I said, I like proving my points, but it's a transformation.
Yeah.
Yet learn from mistakes, learn from things that God has used in your past to drive that new car, right?
yeah.
Mm.
To, maybe avoid the tree when you're backing up, or to get some new tires so you don't hydroplane.
These are so oddly specific.
The second one was. First one was just random.
I mean, I did
Change your oil. I
I
don't
did.
know.
Oh. Ooh.
But anyway, so like, yeah, use those experiences
Mhm.
to fuel the future.
Yeah.
Mm.
Don't squander the new life you have,
Mhm.
but also have grace. Have some patience
Mhm.
with yourself,
Right.
which is so hard.
Oh,
Right. But it's so key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like once you can learn to do that.
I don't think learn to do seems like a
Right.
switch.
Yeah, that's true. Like once you begin that process,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, we're never going to be fully patient with ourselves
No.
or anyone for that matter.
You won't have life figured out at all, but it's just a matter of adapting and understanding. Like, this is my stage in life now. Let me continue
Mhm.
onwards and trusting that God has a plan.
So yeah, I think that's all I have pretty much.
Yeah.
Drive your new car well.
Yeah.
I've never heard that analogy before, and
That's a
I'm
good
pretty
one.
sure you just pulled it out of nowhere, but it works.
It was a joint
really
effort.
well.
Chris gave me the idea.
Better than the haircut.
It's on my
one, I
mind
will
a
give
lot,
you that.
yeah.
Yeah. God bless your '97 Buick.
Yeah. I mean,
Yo,
I-
it has less miles than my car.
as
Which
much
is
as I
insane.
complain about the thing, it gets me where I need to go for
Yeah.
now. So I'm super thankful.
Autumn says she likes the color of your car too.
I love it.
Isn't it colored?
The baby
Yeah.
blue. Mm.
There's a Modest Mouse song, Baby Blue Sedan. I think it's a depressing song because it's
Fitting.
Modest Mouse. but-
God, don't beat me to it.
You want to close this out?
I can, yeah.
Yeet,
Alrighty, guys. So this has been episode 10.
I think
10.
Is it?
double digits.
I think this is double. I think this is.
It might be 9 or 10. I have no idea.
I think it's 10. If not, then it's 9, and Sam will cut it out.
Oh, I'm leaving that
Or
in.
will he?
I'm leaving that in.
But thank you guys for coming out tonight. I hope you enjoyed our conversation about new life. Hopefully, this gives you a little like hope and some reassurance to a lot of things. But yeah, thanks for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hopefully, soon we will be on the podcast app. We're in the state of being approved, so we'll see what happens. I'll let you guys know as soon as it's up. But thanks. Have a nice night, guys.
Where's
We
the
out.
have a
We
good-
out.
We out. Yeah, we out.